A very good morning to all of you. I hope everybody is audible. I am audible to everyone. And you can see me too, right? Good morning, Pratyus. So, this is going to be our last class and we'll try to cover some more important aspects related to international relations. A very good morning, Dhananjay. So, good morning, Ravi. So, today we'll be speaking about some of the global groupings so that you can understand their relevance. Good morning, everyone. Hemant, Ravi, a very good morning. So, it is important that a very good morning, Pratichi. So we'll try to start with a term which is often in news. Whenever you'll see the news and there is a meet. A very good morning, Sajil. So this term Serpa or Serpa dialogue often appears in the news. Okay, we have seen that this term is again and again. A very good morning, Sivangi. So often we see that such terms appear in news. So it is important that everyone understands this word. A very good morning, Amit. And as you all know that an important meeting of G20 is about to happen. Good morning, Ankit. So again, this word Serpa is in news. I am doing fine, Ankit. I am absolutely fine. Good morning, Ravi. So Serpa term, what this Serpa is? Basically, we have to know what Serpa is. So Serpa is a personal representative. Devam, of course, you can say that a farewell class, maybe the last class, but still I'll try my best to give all that I have to offer. And after this class as well, you can maybe at some point in time, maybe you feel like you need my help. I'll be available. You can reach out to me. Okay. So, yeah, Ravi, we'll be talking about G7, G20, G77 and why they were formed. Okay. So basically, I want you to know this term because it is the term which is often associated with meets of G7, G20. So basically, Serpa is a representative. If we talk about the origin of the term, this term has Nepalese origin. Okay, this word belongs to Nepali community, of course, in Nepal as well, and we have also a good number of population who resides in India and who are citizens of India. So this is a cultural term which is, yeah, Ankit, we have started with this only. I have started with this thing only, the Serpa dialogue. This is the first slide, the first few words that I have written. So Serpa is basically the personal representative of the head of a state. Personal representative of the head of a state. Okay. So of course, you know Mr. Suresh Prabhu was representing India in various forums like G20 as a Serpa for the country. And this is basically associated with G7 and G20 meets. Okay. So often you see this term, and whenever there is a meet, often the countries decide that their Serpas, the designated people, meet many a times in order to ensure that whenever the head of the state is going for the meet, they are very clear about the agenda, whatever they have to talk about. Okay. So several Serpa conferences take place before the final meet. Final meet, so that the states are well aware of the agenda So many a times the host country comes with some of the proposals. Very good morning, Subham. So in order to understand what all those agenda are, Serpas meet in many conferences leading to the final meet. So this is what you need to know. Okay. Usually every country chooses a Serpa who is influential. Okay. Though they cannot take decisions on behalf of the state, Serpas cannot take decisions on behalf of the state. But they are generally influential people. Okay, they have a great amount of acceptance and respect in the country from where they belong. So they are chosen as the Serpa to represent the country. Like I said, for India, Suresh Prabhu. Now we'll look at these global groupings and their basic purpose. We'll not be going into detail of the groupings barring G20, because the aspect that I'll be talking about G20, you'll find that question in exam this year. So G20 I'll take a bit in detail, but rest of the groupings I'll give you a brief only. Okay. So we'll start with G7. Okay. Which became G8 and again G7. Okay. So we'll start with G7, basically group of 7 countries. The word G is to indicate a group. If we talk about G7, what was the idea behind forming this group? Okay, I'll come to the members. If we talk about the members, we have Canada, USA, UK. Basically, Canada, USA, they belong to the same region. Then we have France, Germany. France, Germany. Italy, and Japan. Okay, these are the countries who came together because of a single agenda, that was politics. So basically the nature of the grouping, the nature of G7 is political. Nature of G7 is political. So there can be a statement, if G7 is an economic group or political group, then you have to say that it is a political group. A very good morning, Yati. So we have started with today's discussion. We talked about Serpa, who is the representative of the state for the conferences that these groupings conduct the meetings. And now we have come to G7, where I have talked about the member countries. A very good morning, Abhishek, Ashu. Good morning. So if we talk about G7, why this political grouping was formed? In the 1970s, there was oil shock. The prices of the oil had become a concern for the world. So in 1970s, oil shock led to formation of this grouping. The main reason was oil shock, and the world was suffering. So these people wanted to come together in order to make sure that they can devise or work on some policy framework that can help tackle things like oil shock. Okay. So if we talk about the further addition to this group, this group was expanded in 1998. This group was expanded in 1998. Russia was included. And the grouping was called G8. Okay, but of course we know Russia and USA cannot stick together, and Russia also have a habit of forcing its ideas on many of the countries. And in the year 2014, Russia captured Crimea. Okay. It said that it is part of Russia. It cannot exist as an independent entity. And because of this aggression, Russia was removed from the grouping. Because of aggression, Russia was removed. Then we know that the grouping again becomes G7. So this became G7. So if you are following the newspapers, if you watch TV, then you know that Trump, before being defeated, he had a proposal that Russia should be included. But if we look at the latest news of March, April, or even May, the rest of the group, the G7 groups, accused China and Russia of being troublemakers for the world. And indirectly they had conveyed that they will not be including Russia in this grouping, right? So these groupings, they are the most influential, powerful countries who are recognized. So it is important that you read about this thing. This is the only reason this is in news, so you can maybe see a question in prelims where they ask which are the members of G7. And of course, the focus has shifted to G20 as it is more important grouping because it includes both developed and developing countries. So today the more focus is on G20. G7 stays as a group, but they are not much influential in the world arena, of course we know. Okay, so we'll be talking about one more grouping, that is G77. Then I'll go to G20. G77 is another important grouping, and often students get confused that there are only 77 countries, but there are actually 146 countries in this grouping. Okay, 134 countries are in this grouping at this point in time. Yeah, Ravi, they are inviting the countries like India because they are part of the bigger picture. They are part of G20. And of course, you know, in G20, all the G7 members are there. So of course, they want to set an agenda where they can create an environment where like-minded countries propose same thing in the group meetings of G20. And I'll come to that point, that international taxation reforms are to take place. The biggest news of this year, if we see. And G20 is taking the initiative for that. Okay, so it is going to be very, very important. So I'll be discussing that. So these G77, this group was basically a group of the members of United Nations. Okay, it was a coalition which talked about collective economic interest. So G77 basically, its agenda is collective economic interests. So this is basically what? This is a economic grouping that you have to remember. The nature of G7 was simply political. Ravi, China is threatening India because, like I said, when they denounced Russia, like when Trump proposed, so they not only targeted Russia, they targeted China as well. G7 is against both the countries, Russia and China says that India is our neighbor. So it is important that it takes part in some of the things which are favorable to both neighbors. But India is more inclined towards G7 because we are party to G20 and we look forward to a future with them because they are bringing a lot of investment to our country, right? And the economic scenario that is now will definitely require India to get a lot of investments from the West. Okay, so this was an economic grouping initially. "77 countries came together so that the negotiations becomes easier in United Nations." They were like-minded countries which had some economic interest, and they wanted a pressure group. They wanted to be a pressure group where they can force the powerful nations to accept what they want. So this grouping had initially mostly developing countries. Okay, and now we have some least developed countries as well. Okay, now the numbers are more. Now what is? Now there are 134 members. Including developing and least developed countries. Okay, so it has expanded, and one country, and this grouping as well for functioning, as we have seen most of the groupings, they get monetary contribution, right? They support the groups financially with some money. But China is a country which says that I am not part of this group because it does not consider itself as a developing nation. Most of the Western countries call China as a developing nation, but China says that we are already developed. We are not a developing nation. So China funds this organization. Monetary contribution, like rest of countries like India, it does. China does monetary contribution. Contribution to the grouping. But does not consider itself as a member. But doesn't consider itself as a member. China denies that it is a developing country. China denies that it is developing country. But still, it is funding. Why? Because it wants to have considerable influence over these nations who are part of the group. Because whenever they are in trouble, this grouping comes forward for help. And if China is contributing money as per its GDP, of course it has influence. It has influence over this grouping. So this is that is, you need to know about this grouping. And now we'll be looking at G20, which is more important. And yeah, you'll be getting a list of many of the organizations today. I'll be sending it so that at least you can know which things India is part of, India is indulging. Most of those are not in news. So at this point in time, they are not important. But if and when that thing appears in the news, at least you will have basic material to read about it. So I'll be sending a PDF as well. But in my lecture, I'll be focusing more on the most important ones for this year. But some of you are, of course, appearing for 23, 24. So I want you to have some basic material about those organizations, which are not in news for maybe even, yeah, Protyus, Trump, like it is for boosting the confidence and taking blinded support. If somebody tells us you are developed, you are prospering, you are very good, then of course we are like, we are very glad. It is a psychological game, in fact. Like there is no individual, there is no country who doesn't like to be told that they are good, right? Yes, Adi, we are having a last lecture today. Dhananjay, the last point is China does monetary contribution to the grouping. They are giving money to the group. Whenever there is a group, there is some functions attached to the group, right? It requires some kind of contribution from the member countries so that it can run smoothly. It can document the things that are required in order to take care of the problems that these groupings are facing. So each and every country contributes some amount. So China does that. But it says that, no, I'm not party to this group because I'm already developed. Okay? So now we'll look at the important one. First, I'll discuss why G20 is important this year. What is the news that you have to look at? First, I'll discuss the news and then I'll talk about the rest, like the grouping and all. So if we talk about G20 as well, this G20, the country G20, the group of 20 countries, it is also an economic group. Okay, the agenda, unlike G7, its agenda is also more or less economic. When it was formed, basically when it was formed, the agenda was money. Okay, it was formed in the year 1999. The year of Genesis is 1999. And basically it was not some grouping which was more involved at, yeah, Devam, the hosting countries. Now we have Italy in 2021. India will be hosting in 2023. We'll be talking about that. Don't be worried. I'll cover all those aspects. So I'll talk about how this grouping changed from being an economic group to some other group. But initially, I want to focus on the thing which is most important from the perspective. Yes, Yati, it was for that only. It was basically an meet of finance ministers, and we'll see that in 2008, financial crisis led to some changes. I'll talk about that. But why this is in news? Why in news? And now this will appear for 1, 2, 3 years. It will happen because a lot of confusions around these reforms are going to be there. And it will take 2, 3 years before these things settle down. So it is in news because of the international tax reforms. international tax reforms. This is your international tax reform. And there is a meeting in July only, which will be talking about this thing. And basically, this is meant to consider the basic rules for imposition of levies on global technological companies. So, the agenda is the set of rules for imposition of levies on global technological companies. Okay, you're very much aware that many of the companies do not physically are present in India. Many a times we Indians purchase things over internet from a company that is based in USA, which has no office in India. They are making a lot of money from India. Okay, and such thing is happening with all the countries. There are companies in India which are selling products to USA, but they are not physically present there. So their money is coming to that company. They are earning from the population of that company, but they are not paying any kind of tax in the country because they do not have any physical presence. So what these global grouping wants, they say that each and every company which is earning good amount of money from a country where they do not are positioned, they must pay the taxes, and that too to the tune of around 15%. 15% तक देने को कहा गया है. And most of the countries are happy with this. Yeah, Abhishek, you can take that example. So what the companies want, countries want, the grouping wants to tax the online giant companies operating from outside the country and making huge profits. The proposal is to tax at least 15% tax rate. Basically, the tax rate has to be at least 15%. And already some of the countries in the West, they are taxing these giants, technological giants, at a rate of around 12.5%. But there are some countries which feel like it is not enough. Okay. So this is basically the thing for which it is in news. And why this is being done? Because there is tax evasion. Why this thing is being done? Because till now, what was the rule? That the companies will be taxed based on their location, the tax rate of their location. And many of the companies are very smart. What they do? They'll keep a small office in the country of origin and keep a major production center at some place which has less tax rate. And in fact, they'll not pay the full tax to their own country as well. They'll pay some less tax to that country where they have stationed their manufacturing unit. And there was lot of tax evasion happening. Okay. So the other purpose is the negotiations will also include the agenda of tax evasion. Okay. Yeah, Ravi, you can use such terms, of course, while writing the answers of economy. Basically, this is part of more or less, you'll find this question in paper 3. Though G20 as a group, we can say, yes, Ravi, same thing. Hemant, you also mentioned the same thing. Perfectly fine. Okay. So, no tax evasion will be happening. You are very much aware when you are using terms like base erosion and profit shifting. So you know that how these companies work. So for this reason, the negotiations are hastened. Actually, it could have taken more time. They could have taken more time to discuss this thing. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the economic situation of the whole world is very, very bad. So the only companies, if you see, who have actually benefited in these times are the people who are selling their products online, right? So countries want to take a pie of that and help themselves come back. So this is the main news item for which you need to know this thing. And the other news for which G20 is talked about, these nations are basically not in favor of the patent laws related to the drugs, the COVID-19 vaccination. Many countries of G20 are against the decision to allow removal of patent for COVID-19 vaccine. Okay. So this countries like Canada, yeah, Devbrat, you can say the TRIPS issue, but basically they are in news specifically. Whole of TRIPS is part of a bigger negotiation process related to WTO, World Trade Organization. But when most of the countries of the world, even World Health Organization, requested some of the countries to consider at least COVID-19 vaccine to be out of ambit of this patent. So many of these were reluctant. And even under the pressure from many of the calls made by NGOs, civil societies, many of the governments, still we see that things are not moving at a fast pace, right? In fact, if we look at some of the appeals by global organizations like International Monetary Fund that said that all these countries should pump money into the economies, around $1 trillion, so that world can jump out of this crisis and everybody can be vaccinated by 2022, by mid 2022. These countries, some of the G20 countries were against that as well. Okay, so that is part of your economics, the WTO and all. Okay, but I'll be giving a little bit of notes on that as well. But as Ravi had yesterday informed that you had a lot of discussion, almost 4 sessions on WTO and all during your economy. So I am pretty sure that most of you are comfortable with that. Okay, so now for these news, this has become important. Okay, so now we'll look at some of the basic things, the regular things about G20. So as I said that this G20 grouping is basically an economic grouping. Formed in 1999 till 2008. Okay, this grouping was basically what? Yes, Asu, yeah, maybe Rajiv sir took your classes for WTO. So this was a grouping which was attended by the central bank governors and finance ministers. The central bank governors and finance ministers attended the meet. Okay, so this was Devam, you're asking again about optional. Maybe in the last part we can discuss about this thing. Compulsory optional paper is like, of course, it is 500 marks and it wants to check whether you have, if you are reading some subject matter, you know that the application of that subject matter or not. Because every field of study has an application in the real world as well. So it checks that only. And the other reason is UGC. Okay, UGC always protests whenever UPSC thinks of removing the optionals, because many of the subjects will lose relevance, like we had seen with Pali. The students left taking Pali as a subject matter when it was removed from the UPSC syllabus, and data is proof of that. It's in the report of UGC only. Okay, so in 2008, the world saw the global financial crisis. The year 2008, there was global financial crisis. And it was discovered that when only the central bank governors and finance ministers are meeting, they cannot come to a conclusion because they cannot take independent decisions. And when such a big meet is happening, and if they are not in a position to take any decisions, then the help, the thing which can, the steps that can be taken to improve the situation gets delayed. So the group decided that it is not very prudent to create a meet only of these people who cannot take decisions. It's important that head of the states meet so that the decisions become easy and fast. It can be implemented as soon as they meet. Okay? So, this global financial crisis, it indicated that the decision makers must meet in order to take quicker decisions. Decisions so that the world can be saved from various forms of crisis. Okay, so they increased the ambit of this thing. This grouping no more was left as a economic grouping, though the trigger was an economic crisis only. But these countries decided that we are facing a lot many other types of crises. So if such a global forum is being utilized for only one thing, it is not a very good idea. So what they did, they increased the ambit. They increased the scope and ambit. Scope and ambit of the meet. Okay. So they basically, the first thing that they decided that the head of the states will meet. So they decided head of the states will attend the meet. Okay. So the head of the states were included. Yeah, Yati, the aim is this thing only. Economic, sustainable, inclusive economic goal. But it was confined in the yesteryears till 2008 to only economic inclusivity. But now, with other forms of crisis in the anvil, they included issues like climate change, and terrorism, because it has become a common problem for all. In the start of the classes only I had said that most of the Western countries avoided terrorism as an issue because they thought that it is a problem of the least developed and developing countries. Least developing and developing countries. But now many of these developed countries were being attacked. There were terror attacks. They were threatened. So they included such issues as well. Okay? So this is clear. So basically, if we talk about the members, there are 19 countries and one group, European Union. You must be aware. I'm not writing all the names, but I'll give you all the names in the PDF like I had said. You'll get everything in that PDF. This G20, the grouping, has 19 countries plus European Union. And like some of you had initially asked whether last year a question was there where you were supposed to identify a country amongst these 19 countries. So to solve that kind of question, the first thing is like I had said that day as well, a student who is like me will never ever remember all those names. Okay, I never remembered such things, and I never failed in any of the prelims. I always cleared all the prelims. I never tried to mug up such things. The only reason being because I always considered this thing that chances are very high that I'll miss those countries. Some of these. Okay. So why not better invest that time in revising maybe some part of environment or polity? That is basically easy. And the other reason, if some of you are not confused, nahi manenge, yaad kari lenge, that is good. If some of you have a good memory and you can remember all the things, that is excellent. But if you look at that question, the elimination technique was easy. You can easily identify because G20 is always in news. Many a times we go through the paper and we see the names. So always believe in the power of brain. This brain is very, very efficient. It will definitely identify. If you have seen it properly, if you have read even, it will identify and you'll be in a position to mark such type of question. Because there are a lot of groupings. Maybe UPSC को क्या है किसी दिन G77 member पूछ ले. Okay, but jokes apart, if some of you can remember, try. But if not, try to eliminate. You can identify based on the statements. But I do not have time to talk about this elimination techniques. Maybe as some of you had attended my webinar, I'll take such webinar on how to tackle prelims and all as well at some point in time. Okay. So the 19 member countries plus one grouping. Yati, yes, they want to create a new financial architecture. They want to take the things head on because most of the groups, financial institutions like Asu has a confusion that the technique that I had discussed for revision, what after doing 5 revisions in a month? Revise the thing after every 30-35 days. And there will come a time when it will be like only revisions. So give time to only revisions for maybe 5-6 days and then start with new thing. Okay, you can do that. Every month, maybe 35-40 days, you should revisit the topic again. Even it takes 15 days for only revisions in a month, give it. It is worth doing that. क्योंकि सिर्फ पढ़ते रहेंगे सब भूल जाएंगे कोई मतलब नहीं रहेगा. ठीक है? Now let's see some facts about G20 nations. What G20 nations together represent. Okay. Why this grouping is important? Let us focus on this thing. Because if we talk about the global GDP, share in global GDP, it is around 80 to 85%. Some of the text that you'll read will say it is 80%, some will say 85%. So write 80 to 85%. Leave it to the one who is going to check the paper. क्योंकि डेटा कितना चेक करते रहेंगे. Global population, share of the global population. If we talk about this grouping has almost 2/3. Okay, 2/3 of the global population. And if we talk about the global trade, it takes care of 3/4 of the all trade happening in the world. Rest of the countries, after this 20 countries, it is only 1/4 left. So most of the economic powers are in this grouping only. So it is important. Okay. And we know that from this what we can say, that this grouping includes the most industrialized, and emerging economies. From this fact only we can come to this conclusion. It is not like we need to read something to know this thing. If such a huge contribution is being made by only small number of countries, then by common sense also we can say that they are the most industrialized and most emerging economies of the world. Okay. And if we talk about these global meetings, if we talk about the global meetings, it is a practice that the host country will set the agenda. Okay, that I was talking initially as well. The host country sets the agenda of the meetings, of the G20 meetings. And this is the reason, that there are many Serpa dialogues to understand the agenda properly. Okay. And I have always made it a point that always represent your answers using some of the facts in tabular format. Okay. How it helps? It makes your answer more visible. The way I present while teaching you is the way you should adapt while writing your answers as well. It makes things very much easier for the one who will check your paper during mains. Yes, Yati. So if we talk about some of the meetings which are about to happen, so as you'll be appearing for prelims, so some of you in 21, some of you in 22, 23, and of course the way nowadays motivated people are, I'm of course sure that some of you might be attending in 24 as well. Okay, so let's see some of these meetings. The hosts, at least अभी से पता होगा, जिस साल भी होगा उस साल वाले का आपको पता होना चाहिए. So country, basically the host country, and the year. So we know that this year it is Italy. Okay, for 2021, and initially for the year 22, India was to host. Right? India was supposed to host in 2022, but this has been deferred. In the very recent meeting, it was decided that in the year 2022, Indonesia will host it. Okay? For the year 22, Indonesia will host it, and India is slated to host this thing in 2023. This has been changed. Okay? And in 24, Brazil will take the lead. So this is the thing that stands as of now. But like I said, 2022 initially India was to host. So it is very important that you keep on reading the newspaper and updating the things, whatever you are writing. Okay? So initially it was decided that India will take care of this thing. Okay? So you have to focus on this aspect. And for any of the reasons, most of the times, if we talk about why it is important for the world, let me give you a brief. Though based on the news item, you will be deciding what to write in an answer based on the contemporary things. But if we talk about the relevance of this grouping, relevance of G20, so of course it was economic. You will talk about the inclusive nature that it wants to establish. Of course, we have seen that they have included terrorism, so the security angle, because the terrorism is an issue. Of course, they are talking about climate change. As we have issue of global warming. And now more recently, the global dimming concept as well, that you must have read in environment maybe, or you'll be reading if you have not read. There is one more concept that is called as global dimming. This says that the world is warming up. But there is a concept. Yeah, Yati, you can, economic, of course, money laundering and all you can include. The global dimming concept says that because of the pollution that is being generated, the sun's rays are not reaching to the earth's surface properly. And this is the reason that we are not actually seeing the original warming over the land surface. But the oceans are absorbing the heat. So they are more warmed up. Right? So global dimming, if you haven't read this thing, you need to talk about climate change and overall environmental degradation. Because there are lot many talks about overall environmental degradation. This environmental degradation. Okay, so you can write on these things. And like economic aspect, when you'll be writing, like we discussed the news, the problem of tax evasion and the problem of some of the technical giants working from outside and benefiting, you'll write about that. Based on what thing is in news. For security, let's say some country is becoming a threat, they want to talk about it, you'll mention that country. Climate change, some meet is happening, so G20 will be trying to create a perception for that. Yes, Yati. Very good. You have got the crux of this thing. Ha, Devbrat. Of course, you can talk about cyber terrorism, cyber security, right? You can talk about all the forms. It is not limited to one form. When they are talking about such thing, and you can write everything. Economic, of course, the cryptocurrency has become a talk of the world. So there will be some something related to that as well, and that too very, very soon. Okay? So you can talk about this thing. And when it comes to, let's say there is a question that says that what is the relevance of this grouping G20 for India? Again, of course, these points become valid. We want investment. Our neighbors are like many terrorist activities are happening. India is seeing lot of cyclones in Arabian Sea because of the global warming. The ocean water is more warm. And environmental degradation, of course, the desertification has hit and we are losing fertile land. So same headings with a different perspective. Okay, the examples change, the statement change, but the theme remains the same. The theme will be of economy, security, climate change, and environmental degradation. And let's say if there is one more theme that is in news, that will give you enough fodder material to write your answer. Okay? And practicing answer is very, very important. Just keeping the things in your notes, और उस दिन का इंतजार करना कि एक दिन मुझे सब कुछ आ जाएगा और फिर मैं अचानक लिख दूंगा या लिख दूंगी, तो ऐसा नहीं करेंगे. अभी से लिखना स्टार्ट कीजिए. ट्राई टू प्रैक्टिस फ्रॉम नाउ ओनली. टेक सिंपल क्वेश्चंस. अगर ऐसा लगता है कि अभी नहीं लिख सकते हैं, टेक सिंपल क्वेश्चंस एंड ट्राई दैट. एनसीईआरटी की बुक्स के क्वेश्चन लिखिए. ठीक है. नाउ विल लुक एट one more grouping, that is the focus of world. ठीक है. We'll be talking about BRICS. This is one of the most important groupings at this stage, which is poised to become a global influencer. Okay. These 5 countries are touted to be the next big thing. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of cooperation and trust between these countries. But it is expected that in the coming years, these countries will sort out their differences and will lead the world. Okay? Ravi, बिल्कुल लिखना चाहिए previous year questions. You need to write from old previous year questions of GS. Don't focus on those type of questions which were important in that year only. But at least all of you know that almost half of the questions are always static in nature. Examples बदलते हैं, themes नहीं बदलते हैं. ठीक है? Most of the time, even if you write 5 times on environment, you'll talk about air pollution, soil pollution. You'll talk about anthropogenic activities. तो कुछ बातें होती हैं, example बदल जाते हैं. So you have to focus on that. Okay? The themes are always same. जब मैं स्टूडेंट हूँ, आप स्टूडेंट है, या मेरे फादर जब स्टूडेंट रहे होंगे, तब भी वही दिक्कतें हो रही थी इंडिया में जो आज हो रही हैं. ठीक है? एग्जाम्पल बदल रहे हैं बस. So if we talk about these 5 countries, okay, they are also really important. Why? Because if we talk about BRICS, okay, if we see some of the facts related to these countries, you'll understand that why this grouping has suddenly been important. So if we talk about the part of global population, it has 43% of the world population. This is space alone. Okay. So approximately 40 to 43%. You can write 40 to 43. Okay. And it will increase, of course, after our census is out. India is adding a lot of population to the world, right? If we talk about global GDP, it is around 23% of the world. So of course 5 countries only and approximately 1/4. So that's good numbers, right? And if we talk about trade, global trade, it is around 17%. So of course these countries are important. The idea to float a bloc like of these 4 countries was in 2001, and it was advised by the chairman of Goldman Sachs. Okay, he is a British economist, Mr. Jim O'Neill. Okay, 2001, Jim O'Neill said that BRIC nations can be next big thing. Okay. So basically this term was not used by him. Okay. Initially, he said that these 4 countries are like, and when people started talking more about it, with time, when each and every time he was questioned, he started using the term BRIC. Okay, so finally this term was coined by collaboration of, you can say, Jim O'Neill and the newspapers. So often you'll see that he is credited with using this term, but if you look at some of the interviews of Jim O'Neill, you'll see that initially he did not use such term until and unless the newspapers started with it. And it was only in the year 2009 that these 4 countries met. Okay. In 2009, these 4 countries met and declared it as a full organization. BRIC as an organization. So basically the meeting had taken place in Russia. The place is Yekaterinburg. There was a meet, and as the calls of including South Africa was taking shape. Yeah, Yati, perfect. South Africa was added, or South Africa joined the group. And the grouping since then is known as BRICS. Okay. So this group is a group which is talking about all type of reforms. Okay. In the world arena, they want a lot of reforms in most of the aspects, these are the countries who were giving call for multipolar world. These are the countries who were talking about reforms in international organizations. These are the countries which said that developed countries must take responsibility on climate change, because these developed countries started with the industrial revolution, and their unmindful production and exploitation of the resources has actually led to climate change. So this group was very, very vocal. Okay, so they decided to collaborate in many of the aspects, in lot of aspects. And if we see what they called for, they created some of the forums to take care of their requirements. Okay, so the first call was for social, economic and political engagement. Okay, so they created the BRICS forum. So there was a need, there felt need for collaboration in many of the aspects, and to talk the least, the things that are important pertains to the social needs, the economic needs, social needs, and political needs. So they wanted to discuss all these three aspects. Yes, Yati. Of course, they have asked the developed countries to contribute towards sustainable development, to make the financial arrangement, because they were responsible. The developed countries were responsible for most of the trouble that world is facing today. Now, they also know that these reforms in international organizations mean reforms in maybe World Bank, the way IMF functions. So they thought that there is a need for an alternative which can help these countries grow. So they came up with an alternative, and that is Asian Development Bank. Okay, so they came together, sorry, not Asian Development Bank, New Development Bank. Asian Development Bank, of course, sometimes in news, in that write-up, you'll receive information about that as well. So this grouping came up with New Development Bank. So the idea of making this bank was to ensure that it can take care of the needs of at least these 5 countries. Okay, so the agenda of this bank was to finance projects that can lead to sustainable development. And this bank is in Shanghai. Okay. So they came up with this thing. So it was seen as a replacement for IMF and World Bank. Okay, because mostly these are the banks which dictate most of the economies of the world in restructuring. And they always suggest something that is more related to the West. The Western practices that has been successful are directly implemented in some of the developing countries, but their economies are structurally very, very different from some of the rich nations. So this was claimed to be a replacement of that arrangement. But they also know, but this is not the only thing which requires money. There can be a liquidity issue in some of these nations. Suddenly their money or this market crashes, and they can be in need of this thing, monetary help from the world. And at that point in time, maybe IMF or World Bank will come up with certain conditions which can be detrimental for the country in crisis. So they decided that they'll be creating a contingency reserve for the BRICS countries. So the next important aspect of this grouping is BRICS contingency reserve. And this is really important. Why? Because this is the reserve which can help the BRICS members to come out of a crunch situation. Okay? So, if there is liquidity crunch, basically short term, it is not for as if some country is going completely bankrupt, then it will come to the rescue. It is basically for short term. If there is a liquidity crunch, then the reserve will help the nation in crisis to stabilize its economy, to stabilize its economy. Okay, so there is a need of stabilization of the economy in case it is in crunch. So how it can be done? It can be only done if all the countries have contributed to a reserve that can be utilized. Because suddenly if there is a need of liquidity, maybe these countries together cannot finance that at a short notice. So it's always better to keep the reserve. So some contributions were made. Okay. country contribution. So based on the financial health of the economy, each and every country contributed. And if we talk about China, it has given the most of the money for this reserve, and this happens to be 41%. Okay, and the least contribution is made by South Africa. South Africa, that is only 5%. Rest of the countries have given equal contribution of 18% each. Okay, this is okay. Of course, you can use that thing. Okay, you can use the words country and nation interchangeably while writing this thing. You can use the word state as well. Okay, it will give a neutral meaning because there is no political aspect is involved. When I had explained what the nation is, what the state is, right? It has always political connotation. When we are talking about the political aspect, then you have to be very clear when to use a state, when to use nation, right? Else, in rest of the things, of course, you can use the terms interchangeably. Okay? And some of the things that they have done together is like alternate payment system. Some other points, if we talk about BRICS payment system, payment to be exchanged using this system between member countries. Okay, they also have like a cable network, that is optical fiber submarine communication. So you can talk about BRICS cable network, but these things are like use them only if you do not have anything contemporary to write. Okay, if you find a good example in current affairs, it's better to utilize that point instead of talking about something like optical fiber submarine communication network. Optical fiber submarine cable network between members. But overall, this grouping is seen as the next big thing only because they have potential of growing economically, because they are seen as countries who have demographic dividend. But of course, if the situations like COVID sustains for a longer period of time, and the way our education system has taken a hit, this demographic dividend will lose its demographic window and will turn into a demographic disaster. Okay? So you have to use such terms as well. Demographic window is like the period, the opportunity, the right age group. Dividend is when the human resource is formed, and disaster is when a country fails to utilize its youth, the working population, to aid to the development of nation. Okay? So they all are what? BRICS. All of these are looking at their demographic window. And the window always has the good and the bad views. So the good one is demographic dividend. If the country is in a position to utilize its human resource for the betterment of its nation, and bad is demographic disaster, like is happening in some parts of Brazil. Okay? Because youth, when utilized as a human resource, when empowered to earn, can take the nation forward. But if they are left in lurk, they are not properly invested upon, then they can be a reason for all the bad things. If they are not employed, maybe they'll be indulged in some of the activities that will create law and order situation. They'll indulge in drugs. They'll indulge in smuggling maybe to earn money, to earn a living. So all these countries, barring the case of China maybe, rest of the 4 countries are looking through their demographic window. There is an opportunity. Okay? So these terms maybe you'll be reading in GS geography in detail, but they often appear in newspapers also. Okay? So you need to have a look at it. Some of the different terms as well. So again, if we talk about India and BRICS, so what India can achieve? Like I had already given you a view that the themes always remain same. Okay? India and BRICS as a group. Okay? India in itself is included in this group. So the economic aspect, you can write about the social aspect, right? Improving the livelihoods, improving the condition of women, improving upon the situation of poverty, helping each other. We can talk about the political aspect. We can talk about security. we can together talk about this thing. We can talk about environmental degradation, climate change, a lot many things, right? And of course, the multipolar world must be talked about in the political aspect. Okay, so this is a very, very important organization, a grouping, sorry, not an organization, this is a grouping that you need to focus. Okay, so if you have any questions relating to this, you can ask, else we'll look at some more aspects that are important, that should be focused in our last lecture. And then I'll be looking at broadly what you should be focusing while preparing for the time being when you are at home. So it seems that nobody have a question at this point in time, because I cannot see any of the comments that are coming. So I'll talk about the quadrilateral security dialogue, and this is going to be the topic that is important. Quad, we had seen what it is, and while we were looking at other things. Okay, Asu, thanks, you have responded that you understood, and this is like Yati is also clear with everything. So let's see. Sazil, you can't see which thing. This is climate change, environmental degradation. Environmental degradation, env.deg लिख दिया है मैंने, but environmental degradation, I have used the short form. Divam, geography optional, yeah, we can talk about in the last phase only if you want me to. So geography optional is one of the most scoring optionals, of course, if you have command, and I think you might have seen the webinar that I had taken, and in which I had given a glimpse of how to write the answers. Most of the people don't teach that aspect, so I tried to at least give an idea how you can write about the same issue in GS and geography, because in second paper the questions are same, only the writing approach changes based on the things that we read from the thinker's perspective, and more number of diagrams, of course. So maybe I will let's focus on this thing, what you call as international relations. Geography we can talk about later. So quad. Basically, quad represents 4. Okay, quad represents 4, and this is quadrilateral security dialogue. Okay, so the quadrilateral security dialogue, or the quad, was formed in 2007. Formed in 2007, and it was Japanese Prime Minister Saizo Abe who proposed it. And of course, You know that if Japan has proposed this thing, then Devam, yes, Devam, most parts, of course, it can be done from that. You can join my that group, Telegram group, and I have given all the list of books that are required for geography optional. All the books are written there. Okay, you can we can talk about this thing. Asu, I'll talk about 1 year preparation strategy. Of course, let's focus on this thing first. In the given time, first we talk about this thing, we complete this thing, and then I'll take your questions. Okay. So the aim, this basically the Chinese threat, the China issue had motivated Japan to propose this grouping. Okay. So they said that the group wants free, open, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region. Free, open, and prosperous. Indo-Pacific region. Free, open, and prosperous Indo-Pacific region is what they wanted. And if we talk about the countries, of course, many a times we have discussed, it is Japan, US, Australia, and India. Japan, US, Australia, and India. All of these countries are against the Chinese design. Yeah, Yati, this is a common agenda of all. They want trade policies to be liberal, but when it comes to the final stage of any of such talks, USA is the first one which will back it out. Okay. And they wanted to check the Chinese expansionist policy, like they specifically talk about Indo-Pacific region, and we have seen that China's 9-dash line, it stakes claim over a large part of Indo-Pacific. So this is a problem area. The Belt and Road Initiative, of course, is a problem area. So the China factor, we have to look at the China factor, because most of the energy that this grouping is investing is on this factor only. China wants the resources of Indo-Pacific. It is in conflict with many countries in this region, in Indo-Pacific region. It is also playing the debt diplomacy. What more it is doing? It is increasing its military bases, right? increasing presence of military and naval bases. So China is doing a lot of things which can be a threat to most of the countries. Okay? So all such things being done, these countries are afraid that things can go wrong. In fact, I had taken this example of Australia, where we had seen that how they are trying to influence, the Australian universities, how they are uh, playing with the minds of Australian students and uh, pushing their communist ideology. And recently, if you see the newspapers, Australia is the most attacking country when it comes to the Chinese designs, the Chinese policy. Okay? So, plus, if we talk about India, what Quad can give to India? Quad to India. Okay? If we talk about this thing, we know that there is Chinese threat from a string of pearls. Okay? The One Belt, One Road initiative. And many of our neighbors joining in. So we are the only country which has not joined and which opposes it now. So, but obviously China is negative with respect to India. Devbrat, Australia is seen as most weak country because it was in debt trap diplomacy of China. In fact, some of the reports suggest that this Australian rebuttal of the China can cost it, can impact almost 80% of its economy. And it may take around 10 to 15 years for Australia to recover the losses that it will be making by deteriorating the ties with China. And Australia, of course, is weak in this grouping because technologically it is not as advanced as Japan. And with respect to population, it is not as endowed like India. And America, of course, is good with its human resource, and technologically also it is very, very advanced. So at least rest of the members have advantages in one of the aspects that Australia doesn't have. So it is often said to be the most weak link in this grouping, that is Quad. Okay. This can also mean for India the economic prosperity. We can seek investment from the grouping, because the idea of this grouping is to check the Chinese design, and Japan and America, of course, are in a position to invest a lot of amount in India, so that we never ever try to mend our differences with China. They want us to be antagonistic to China, right? So we have economic prosperity when we are in this thing. If we talked about this, what you call security aspect, of course, we have seen. We can influence our neighbors because of the closeness with USA. Because none of the countries of the world want to go against USA. Even if somebody is with China, they cannot say that they are against USA, because US is the only country which has dared to enter the territories of other countries and had stayed there for a period of time and taken action against them. So nobody will dare to do that. Okay? And also, we will have technological benefit of the technological advancement that Japan and USA can offer. Yes, Yati, if we develop good relations with rest of the countries, the political position of China will weaken, right? And there may be a situation where each and every country is supporting India, and China will be compelled to either support us, or nobody will care what China has to say. But it also comes with some of the disadvantages. Okay? Like problems. The most basic problem with this grouping is that all the members are stationed far from each other. So if they are far, suddenly we cannot develop a broad level consensus on many things, because they are stationed at different locations of the world, and the needs are different. All of these are having different needs as well. So even if we want to connect with Australia, we have only aerial route or via ship, right? So we cannot be very frequent to Australia. So cultural connect, of course, it won't happen because not much of exchange. So this is a, of course, limitation. The other thing is all of the members have different priorities when talks about climate change, nuclear usage, etc. happen. They all together have different stand on even most common things. Broadly, they seem to converge, but the idea is lot different when actually it comes to implementing some of the things. Okay? And the worst part is, nobody can take US support for granted. It's impossible to be assured of US support in every aspect, because they always play the game based on their own priorities. They never think about others. America First policy is a policy that they have been pursuing for a very long period of time. Even if they have not declared this thing, we can see that they gave priority to USA. So in the meanwhile, if China comes with something, some proposal that can benefit USA, maybe it will take a turn towards China. So nobody can solely depend on US, not even Australia. They also know. Japan is also aware that we cannot take the support for granted. Okay? So these are some of the things that you need to know about Quad. And whenever you will be writing about writing anything based on this thing, so of course you can talk about those aspects only. The economic aspect, India is going to benefit, or maybe all of them can benefit together. The security aspect, you can talk about those Malabar exercises that are happening between these countries. All of them are getting involved. So such things you need to talk about. So this is one grouping that was really, really important. This news item was important. We have to see how they collaborate in future. And of course, this COVID-19 situation shows that there is more than just willingness to cooperate. But like I said, we cannot think that USA will always come forward for India's help. As we have seen during COVID as well, that initially it was reluctant. USA was reluctant to provide us with vaccines. In fact, they haven't sent all the things that they had promised till date. So the problem still lies in this thing. So this is basically all I wanted to discuss. And some of the organizations that are important, but not in news. They are not making any headlines, will be provided to you in this thing, what you call as the PDF. A basic detailed, not much of the detailed discussion, but of course it will cover the aspects that are important when it comes to knowing the organization. So there will be some description about things like of which India is a member, like the Australia group. I said Asian Development Bank, that is important. Asian African Legal Consultative Organization is also. Like it is not in news, but as you will be appearing in 2024, so any given day. Divam, okay, you have 2 o'clock the current affairs class, that's fine. So we'll be done before that. I just want to talk about some of the things that you need to focus, because most part, of course, which is important for everyone who is World Economic Forum, of course, it will be included in that discussion. Protyus, World Economic Forum is an agency which comes out with lot many reports, and as the name suggests, World Economic Forum, this is a forum basically that is related to economy. And if you haven't read about this thing, it was not taken, then don't be worried. I'll be sending the write-up, which will of course include your like nuclear supplier group, World Economic Forum, IMF, World Bank, some discussion about World Trade Organization. Suman, you want to see the slide of starting. Okay. So we started with this thing, the Serpa dialogue. Okay, this was the first thing that we discussed today. So you can have a look at that. Divam, okay, just give me some time before you can come with your questions. This is the time when I'll be taking your questions only. But as some of you feel like some of the things are not discussed, so I'll give a reason for that. Like somebody said about World Trade Organization, of course, it was part of economic. IMF, it is part of that. World Bank, of course, part of economy. Nuclear supplier group, it is a group of nations which are having nuclear reserves and who are supplying to the people. So there are certain terms that often are. Okay, Amit, you want me to talk about prelims. I'll be talking about that, don't worry. I'll be giving time to all those things, but I am just bringing to your notice what things are important, so that these terms will appear. But until and unless it becomes a big news, it is not important. Neither you are supposed to invest a lot of time on such aspects. Of course, Mehul Choksi is arrested, so your Interpol will become important. China factor slide. Okay. So Interpol, so such descriptions will be there. Yeah, Devam, your doubt is on geography optional. I'll talk about that. Of course, I'll give some time to you as well. And like there is 5G. Okay, 5G is being implemented. So like International Telecommunication Union, though it is not part of international relations, but I have included that thing because 5G is in news and it will be being implemented till someone from 22 and 23 is also appearing in the exams. Ravi, it is ideological conflict if you talk about Turkey and India. This is not like they are against India, but India is against some of the things that they are doing. Like Palestine issue, of course, India is not very vocal about Palestine, Israel, so they are not happy. So Turkey is like this only. Till 2010, they were a good friend of ours, but some the government of the day is like more inclined towards some of the fundamentalist views. So we have some sour relationship. Okay. So International Labour Organization, Food and Agricultural Organization, some of these, of course, I'll give the write-up. Okay, very thank you, Yati. If you understood everything, that is great. I expect that most of you must have understood whatever I taught. So now I am open to your questions. I just wanted to address this thing. Sir, how many times, sir, I want to take geography GS module, but as you see, you don't take online classes of earlier. Then can you say, we'll be starting, I'll be starting KK classes in the month of June, maybe. I'm starting with optional around after 15th, but before 20th, I'll be starting geography optional. For GS, of course, I'll be teaching at many places, so maybe I'll inform you if you want to join geography only, that GS part. Subham, of course, whatever is left are small organizations that are relevant, that do not require any kind of teaching from my side. समझने की जरूरत नहीं होगी वहाँ, सीधा याद कर लेने वाली चीजें मैंने छोड़ी हैं. लाइक दोज वर नॉट मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट. मैं लिखता ही सिर्फ, आप लोगों को नोट करना पड़ता. सो Sazil, it will be very less than others, of course. It will be not much. Of course, maybe you can send me a message or you can call and we can discuss about this thing. Okay, thank you, Asu. If you found it yeah, I understand, Divam. This is something like it is disclosed, but I cannot talk about geography optional now, right? You must understand, I'm taking the classes for international relations. And if you want to join that geography optional, maybe I have given my number, you can use that, right? I'll again give my number, not only because of some other subject. Even if you need any kind of help from me in international relations and rest of the things, feel free to ask me. Whenever I'll get time, I'll definitely reply. This is a truth that many students send messages to me. So many a times I miss, but some fine day I do check all the messages, and I have also gone through some of you had communicated. So 58822 737. So you can ask your queries related to international relations. Sazil, I said I cannot talk about geographic optional at this platform, as you keep on asking you guys. So Devam, it won't be like that. Like other people, it won't be there. And Asu, that is great that I hope that whatever I have taught you help you guys to clear the exam. And this is my only wish, that all of my students clear with a top rank, and someday you feel like calling me on this number and you'll be telling me that there was some contribution from my side. Okay? This is my expectation, that when you make it, you'll remember me. And please feel free to ask some questions related to IR maybe, or basic preparation strategy everybody was asking. So let me give 5 minutes to this thing as well, how to prepare this thing. The basic preparation strategy, like I said, the universal truth about preparation is that you have to read the things properly. Whenever you are reading, you must invest a good amount of time on every page, so that you can grasp it, understand it. And the other thing which is really, really important is revisions. Divam, a string of pearls we had spoken, I think that maybe you forgot. A string of pearls is an idea which says that China is trying to surround India from all the sides. Okay? It is said that it is part of larger Chinese design. ASU, there is no fixed time to cover any of the subjects. Let's say I may have love for history and you may have love for science and technology. So if I read history, I'll be quick. If you read science and technology, you'll be quicker. But if you are reading a subject which doesn't cannot generate a lot of interest, then probably you'll find it difficult to complete that in less time. So don't just say that 20 days, 15 days. Let it take 25 days. Let some take 30 days. But make sure that you remember everything. Okay, so I was talking about this string of pearls. So here we know that this is Africa. Okay, this is just a rough diagram to give you an idea about what is happening. Okay, we have Australia here. So what China is doing, somewhere here we have Cocos Island that belongs to Myanmar. So Yati, you'll get all such information in the notes. Don't be worried about it. I'll be sending that. Do not be worried about such things. These are all factual things that you'll be easily covering from what you call as the notes, the PDF that you'll be receiving. This is something which probably need your attention, as Devam has pointed. Probably some of you have not understood at that point in time what exactly was happening. Okay, so if we look at the Chinese design, okay, and in Sri Lanka also they have invested Hambantota. Cocos Island. So what China is doing? China is developing naval bases in some of these places. Okay, that's maybe Yangon or Rangoon for that matter. China is investing in many places. And India feels that it is to contain India. Also, for geography, of course, you need to look at, if you find it difficult to understand any of the concepts, these kind of lectures that we are having will take care of 95% of the things. But sometimes in geography, it becomes difficult to imagine a thing because you are standing at a point on Earth and Earth is so huge. So go for some of the animated videos that explain things that you can look, like the solar system, Earth is rotating. So the visuals, not the lectures. Go for the visuals, animated videos, so that within 2-3 minutes you will understand the concept, what is happening. You'll see that. Okay? Even if you are from commerce background, geography is going to be really easy. There are only 20% of the things that you find difficult to understand. But animated videos will make those things easy for you. You can easily manage. Okay? So, this is called as the string of pearls. Okay? But basically, China is doing this thing in order to have command over the resources that this vast Indian Ocean has to offer. And it also fears the US presence in Diego Garcia. And we had spoken about this thing in our last lecture as well. So maybe, okay, Ankit, that is good that you feel IR is interesting. So not only the subject matter, also focus on the things like we had discussed. Okay, thank you, Ankit. Devam, personally, if anybody asks me, I always tell them to have books. Though, whenever I teach, I cover most of the aspects, more than maybe many of the people are doing in those many hours that are important. But books gives you power. Have a habit of creating your small library, small one. Not, I don't want you to have 20-25 books, but some of the basic books, let's say 5-7 books of optional, and one book, a standard textbook for GS, all the subjects plus NCRT. That you should always have. Maybe you'll get a top rank and you will not require that book. But at least at some point in time, you are bored of reading the notes that you have. You have understood everything. So maybe you want to learn something more that can help you some good speech, maybe after you top the exam. Okay. So it's, you should always, Yati, for international relations specifically, if you want to have a book, you can go for a book published by TMH and follow the current affairs. Okay, Ankit and maybe many of you are asking for how to crack the prelims in first attempt. Very simple. Your dedication will determine if you are clearing the prelims. The same mantra. आपको चीजें याद होनी चाहिए, आपका रिवीजन अच्छा होना चाहिए. You need to have good amount of reading, and instead of the things being on these pages maybe or in the books, it has to be here in your mind. जितना आप अच्छा पढ़ेंगे, जितना आप रिवाइज करेंगे, उतना आसान होगा पेपर निकालना आपके लिए. ठीक है. रिवीजन इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. I always tell my students that don't read if you don't revise. कम से कम घूमने चले जाइए, माइंड फ्रेश रहेगा, वापस आके पढ़ लेंगे. If you cannot recall the thing whatever you are reading, it is of no use. Like these lectures are good. Why? Because you get an opportunity to see the things as well. So audio and visual are together. So this can have an impression for a longer period of time. But let's say if you are reading the newspaper and you are not revising that part, it is just waste of your time. Maybe you can talk about some of the things for 4-5 days. After that, you will not be in a position to recall even a single statement what you have read. So to crack the prelims in first attempt, to crack the prelims in first attempt, mains in first attempt, and to tame the interviews in the very first attempt, the most basic key element is revision. और वो कब होगा? जब आप पहले पढ़ लेंगे. You have to read first and then you can revise. And many of you are like still a list of books, of course, Devam will be provided to you for geography optional. Even you can find some of those on my Telegram channels, and you can download those books if you don't want to purchase. Many of the books are available over internet, so you can go for that. Adi, how to plan 1 year preparation? Even if you are planning in 1 year, current affairs is the only things that can take more of your time. That will, Proteus, we have not signed OBOR. We are like, of course, they'll be like, they are connected, but it is not part of OBOR. India is not ready for that. For 1 year preparation, the strategy should be like complete everything. Even if it is 3 years, somebody is appearing after 3 years, my advice is complete everything this year only, so that you can work on skills. Don't think that 3 साल बचे हैं तो इस साल जीएस पढ़ेंगे, अगले साल ऑप्शनल पढ़ेंगे, फिर 1 साल क्या है कि एसए पढ़ेंगे, प्रैक्टिस करेंगे। अभी से आंसर राइटिंग की प्रैक्टिस कीजिए, राइट आंसर्स, रिवाइज, मेक यूटिलाइज योर नोट्स। मे बी आपको जितना आप पढ़े हुए रहेंगे, 1 साल इज मोर देन सफिशिएंट टू क्लियर द पेपर। Sazil, how to relate current affairs to our syllabus? If you have read everything very well and you have revised, and like I said, if things are in books, you won't find it easy to do or recall any of the things or write or interlink the things. But if everything is in your brain, then the moment you see something in the newspaper, you'll know that I can write this thing in polity. I can write this thing in economy maybe. I can connect this thing with international relations or geography. So you'll know that. And for that, you can utilize some of the magazines as well. So that is also a good idea. Okay. So if some of you have any more questions, feel free to ask. And like I said, you can reach out to me. Yeah, Sivangi, there is a method. The revision cycle, like I had talked about, the more number of revisions. Revision part is secondary. First, invest some good amount of time on reading the page. If you want to remember the year, if you want to remember the dates, you'll have to keep looking at those dates and years. And that is the revision. Some of the part will require more number of revisions, like dates and years. Some of the part will require less number of revisions. So let's say for years and dates, you can revisit the notes for maybe 7 times in a month, for the first month only. And all the effort goes to the first month that you read the topic. Thereafter, it's all about revisions. And it is not like you have to invest 15 hours a day every day for 365 days. That's not happening. Take breaks. If you have a week, read good amount, invest good amount of time maybe for 6 days, and maybe half a day break. After every 15 days, whole day break. क्योंकि अभी आपको मैं बोलूंगा अगर कि कार दे दी जाए, बाइक दे दी जाए कि यहां से चेन्नई जाना है. If somebody asks you to go to Chennai from Delhi, then what you'll do? You'll start and reach Chennai. ऐसा तो नहीं करेंगे. You won't do that. You'll rest at night. You'll stay. So continuously reading for 365 days is just an idea. It won't happen. If you take good amount of rest in the meanwhile, of course you'll do. आपसे हो जाएगा. थैंक यू सुमन. अगर मेरा पढ़ाया हुआ आपको समझ में आया तो ये बहुत ही अच्छा है. थैंक्स फॉर योर एडमायरेशन. Subham, like I said, 2023 में you have to appear for the exam. Still try to complete everything by the end of 2021. Focus on revisions. Invest good amount of time on readings. Maybe stay consistent. It is not like you need to, if 2023 you'll be reading for every 15 hours every day till 2023. If you are reading 5 hours every day, it is my suggestion, do it consistently. Even if someday you are very, very busy, at least give 1 hour. Health issues, of course. दिक्कत है तो फिर okay, Adi, that is great that you have learned some part of answer writing as well with my teaching. And my intentions was to ensure that my teaching is equally good for prelims, mains. And of course, if you practice these things, which you talk with your friends, you'll definitely be easily speaking in front of the interview board as well. बोलने पे वर्क कीजिए, लिखने पे वर्क कीजिए, सब इम्पोर्टेंट है. Pratyush, yeah, that program, the writing program will continue. It is a continuous process. वो रहेगा. Amit, that's great that you have found the material good. That is great. And I just want you guys to make sure that you read and revise this thing properly and look at some of the answers that we had discussed. Try to write that and build on this thing, because those were the answers which had helped me to reach the ultimate stage. Wonderful, Yati. If you are writing your answers and finding it easy to write the answers after the discussions we had. And if some of you had missed the webinar, you can attend that. It is still available. If you'll see, answer writing element will become easy, but keep writing. This is the only way you'll improve. Devam, great. I want you to call me. I want you, all of you, to call me after you get selected, so that I can tell everybody ki, look, my students are now serving the nation in the top positions. I'll be very, very proud when you make it. So let's take few more questions. We have less time, and you have a class as well. You'll get the notes. Most of the things will be covered. But go through the newspapers. They are the most important part when it comes to international relations. So my suggestion is, go through newspapers properly. It will help in your most of the optionals as well, which are dynamic in nature. Okay. Newspapers may not be much helpful. If you think that in mathematics optional news items are not important, you are wrong. Let's say there is a news of some famous mathematician, or his centenary year is there, 100 years of his contribution. Then his theorem or that question will appear in mathematics optional as well. So each and every optional is influenced by news items. So you need to focus on newspapers. Read, revise, practice. This is the only way to get through this exam. Do it consistently. Never ever feel like somebody else is better than you. Try to beat yourself every day. खुद में improvement चाहिए. अपने से अच्छा perform कीजिए. आप सीख जाएंगे. हर कोई सीख जाता है. Right? सभी लोग सीख सकते हैं. मैं इंजीनियर था, मुझे हिस्ट्री आने लगी, ज्योग्राफी आने लगी. साइंस का स्टूडेंट था मैं. बिल्कुल साजिल, आप इंग्लिश मीडियम के स्टूडेंट हैं, आप हिंदी में इंटरव्यू में बात कर सकते हैं. भाषा का कोई प्रभाव नहीं पड़ता है. पर मेरा सजेशन है कि चूंकि आप इंग्लिश माध्यम में एग्ज़ाम देंगे, तो इस भाषा पे मेहनत कीजिए. यू नीड टू वर्क ऑन योर हिंदी एज वेल. सुमन, हिंदी आज ऐड हुई है, मैंने आज हिंदी में भी बात की है. बट देखिए, आपको बहुत ज़रूरी है, जो लोग क्या है कि इंग्लिश में कंफर्टेबल नहीं भी हैं, उनको ज़रूरी है कि वो इंग्लिश पे थोड़ा वर्क करें. या यति, आई वॉन्ट यू टू कॉल मी आफ्टर योर सिलेक्शन, नॉट ओनली मैसेज. एंड आई वॉन्ट यू गाइज टू वर्क ऑन योर लैंग्वेज एज वेल, because you'll be reading so many books. It is not tough to improve your English language. You are reading the books, right? Just focus how they are written and you are done. आप क्या है कि ये कोशिश नहीं करते हैं, बस इसलिए नहीं होता है. I have also read in the government school, the normal one, the blue pants and white shirt. So I have learned this thing. I was not a convent student. हर कोई सीख सकता है, कोशिश करेंगे बस. और किताब, हिस्ट्री की किताब इंग्लिश में लिखी हुई है, पढ़िए, देखिए कैसे लिखा, आप सीख जाएंगे. ओके, सो आई थिंक दैट वी हैव टेकन ऑल द क्वेश्चंस एंड माय वेल विशेस एंड ब्लेसिंग्स आर विद यू. I want all of you to qualify with a good rank, and feel free to reach out to me in case you are finding it difficult. At any stage, you feel like you need my help, you need my advice, feel free to reach out to me. And I'm sorry that I did not take questions on geography optional because it was on purpose. जिसको भी geography optional की बात करनी है, feel free to send me a message, I'll reply, right? Because this platform is for international relations, so I don't want it to get indulged in that. Thank you, Devam. Yati, stay positive, have wonderful time, and do the things that I have suggested, because that is the way you'll get through the exams. So you have current affairs classes now, so I won't take much of your time. And here I leave you with my blessings, my well wishes, and I want to hear from you as soon as possible. You make it. Stay blessed, stay healthy, be very, very successful in life. Okay? Thank you.